Hello, everybody. Well, I hope you're going to enjoy December's webinar. We're going to be discussing witnessing during Christmas means wasting time for the gospel. Yep, don't tune me out. I know when you hear the word wasting time or the words wasting time and for the gospel, you're trying to reconcile this in your mind right now. But let me tease this out for you and explain it on how I see it. So there are 3 points that we're going to cover today that will help you waste time for the gospel. So let me explain. Just hanging out and spending time together, getting off your crammed schedule, and getting on to God's kingdom work is going to be point number 1. Point number 2, letting the conversation develop through internal prayer. And then point number 3 is going to be redeeming every moment you have around people to love them and do life together. Now, as I usually do with the webinars, I'm just going to simply share some stories of what God's doing in my life by His grace and by His mercy. Okay. So just hanging out and spending time together, getting off your crammed schedule and doing God's kingdom work is very, very important. We, as Americans, we cram our schedules full. We don't take time to do life together well. We're just hanging out with people. So I can't hang out with someone who is 50 miles away on a regular basis. That's just not possible. But I can hang out with the people who live right next door to me. And so just give you an example of yesterday, it was snowing outside, and so we couldn't really go anywhere, so we're just hanging out, and the kids were playing in the snow. We played in the snow, and we did some things around the house, but then our neighbors just invited us over. And I could have been lazy and remained on the couch, although I wanted to. but my wife pushed me to get up off the couch. I'm still in my pajamas, but just to go next door and to hang out with the neighbors. So we spent the entire afternoon hanging out with them. Getting off of my couch and my self-imposed schedule and getting into God's kingdom work. So as I motivated myself to get off the couch because it was snowing, didn't have a whole lot to do, and I wanted to read some reading I had, but I did get some of that done. But anyway, I got off the couch and I began just praying internally. Lord, how are you going to use me? How are you going to use us here this day? And so I went over and watched football. We ate dinner together, and from that time that I spent with my neighbors, it turned out to a really fruitful conversation. And the conversation, it just really naturally gravitated toward the gospel and some points that this dear person in my life had in their mind, some questions they had in their mind about God and evil. And I just simply I was in their home spending time with them and just praying that God, you take the conversation and you navigate it toward the gospel. But it would never happen if I would have remained on my couch and if I would have remained on my own schedule rather than stepping into what God wanted and what He wanted to do yesterday on a snowy, cold day where I couldn't travel, go here and there. But point number 2, from that time I spent with my neighbors yesterday, I really learned, and I hope that we're all learning together how to develop an internal prayer life. Now, this is not a prayer life where you're verbally in your prayer closet verbalizing prayers to God, but spending time in prayer while you're sitting there on the couch watching, Dallas beat Philadelphia yesterday, or while you're sitting there with your neighbor eating dinner or discussing topics, that you're internally in prayer for the whole situation. And even yesterday, I could have prayed more internally, but I did pray some. But I feel that we need to be in that constant communion with God when we're around people that we love and we want to know more about Christ, or we want to come to know Christ for the first time. that cannot be overemphasized, because Paul tells us in his book, his letters to Thessalonica, that we should be praying without ceasing. And when you begin doing that type of praying, it becomes a habit, and you consistently do it more and more. All of a sudden, you'll see God step in and begin to navigate conversations to spiritual conversations. So last night, the issue was, tell me, why would God send some person who's an African tribe to hell because they haven't heard about Jesus Christ? They haven't heard about God. So I had an opportunity just to unpack that and explain that that person's not going to hell because they never heard of Jesus Christ, but they have broken God's law, and they're a lawbreaker. And then I got to explain the importance of every man knowing God, every person knowing God, but them suppressing that, and then the importance of us doing and going out and being missionaries, sharing the gospel with these people, and then God's amazing work and what He does and His sovereignty to get people to them to share the gospel with them. So it's a very, very fruitful conversation, but it would have never happened, I don't think, without prayer and without me getting off my schedule. Okay. Point number 3 is redeeming every moment you have around people to love them and to do life together. So yesterday, as I said, it was snowing out, and my wife and I, we went on a walk, and my kids, they were playing out in the snow, and my little girl wanted to build a snowman. So she began building the base, and she leaves me with about a foot diameter snowball. She said, "Daddy, can you make the base while I go and do some sledding and play with my friends?" I said, "Sure, I can." So I start rolling this thing down a hill and down our road, and this thing ends up being really, really gigantic. But as I was doing this, 2 of the neighbor kids come up beside me and go, "Can we help build a snowman too?" I said, "Sure, why not?" Now these kids, they've been over to my house before playing and playing with my kids before, so they already knew I knew them. And I've had to kind of get on them time to time because they're rambunctious and stuff. But we have this somewhat of a relationship with these kids. But then the mom and dad, they come out and they begin helping. And one of the kids makes the comment. He says, "Wow, we've never built a snowman before, Dad." And I got to meet the father. I didn't get to share the gospel with the father, but I got to meet him, got to know a little bit about him, just from building a snowman, being together, spending some time with his kids, and we made probably a 7-foot tall snowman. And it was just a really neat moment in our neighborhood to meet a couple who was very hard to reach, very hard to talk with, very hard to engage. But hey, I got to engage them a little bit through their children. And so that leads me to say this. We need to redeem every moment we have to be around people. We need to redeem every moment we have when we're around people to love them and to do life with them as they will allow us. We can't force ourselves upon people, but we can love them, and when they're around us, we can do life with them. And never forget the most amazing point in all this is that we have an opportunity as Christians to influence people, to share the truth with them, to love them, and to do life with them. So there are the 3 points. Now, why did I label this wasting time for the gospel? Because none of the stuff that I've done the past day was on my schedule. Spending time with my neighbors, eating dinner and watching football, building snowman with my neighbors and my children, snowman. None of those things were on my schedule. I consider that wasting time for the gospel. But it's how you can redeem every single moment of your life for the gospel of Jesus Christ. Sometimes we've got to get out of our crammed schedule and be about God's kingdom work and spend time with people. Not just be around them, actually spending time being with them. And I did a podcast. If you want to hear that podcast, it's episode 1 on season 2. Simply go to gospelgm.com. resources and click on podcast and scroll down till you see episode 1 for season 2, and you can listen to that podcast to get a little more there on my thoughts on being with people versus being around people. And that's some of what we talked about in point number 1 today. Now, as always, without our monthly partners, our partners who give to this ministry, we could not do what we do without you. So we thank you so much for being a part of what we're doing here at Gospel of God Ministries, and these webinars are geared towards you. We hope you benefit from them. We hope you're blessed by them. So let's review our 3 points on today's webinar. Just hanging out and spending time together and getting off our crammed schedules is very, very important in order for us to do God's kingdom work. Let the conversation develop through internal prayer. As the conversation of the day goes on, ebbs and flows, you're praying internally that God would take it and shape it to the gospel. God would take this conversation to the gospel. And then redeeming every moment you have around people to love them and to do life together is very, very important. And remember, guys, if you ever have any topic you want me to speak on and to make a webinar out of, or to make a podcast out of, or you just have some comments, some encouraging comments, some comments you think we can do things better, hey, please send them our way. Our number is 919-307-7446. I'll say it again, 919-307-7446, or you feel more comfortable just emailing me, Tommy@gospelgm.com. Know we love you. We appreciate you guys. We hope you have a very Merry Christmas. And always remember, the truth worth proclaiming is a truth that transforms. And we will see you next year on our webinar for January. We appreciate you guys and have a great Merry Christmas. And remember, the Christ child has come, lived, died, and resurrected. So now we have eternal life. Merry Christmas.